Hey, sports fans, PBC Sportscast. Hey, PB, guess what? I don't know. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm honoring the Blizzard of 78 with a Blizzard of 78 IPA by Wormtown Brewery in Worcester. I hope I don't jinx myself because we still have 2 more weeks to go. But as you know, lived here back in Boston in the day, the storm of all storms that snowstorms are measured by, right?
Oh my God, 100%. People still talk about it every day. I'll never forget. I think I was 10 when it happened.
It was unbelievable. Right, right, right.
I remember
Hey,
it
all right,
well.
we're going to talk a little Super Bowl recap, just with little last parting shots. Then we're going to talk about legacy, Andy Reid's legacy, Patrick Mahommes' legacy. Now they both have 3 Super Bowl titles. And then Kyle Shanahan, first coach to blow 3 10-point Super Bowl leads ever. We'll talk about that. But before we get into that, I got to acknowledge one thing. The rumor that white men can't jump has been once again proven incorrect. Mac McClung does it again. He repeats in the slam dunk contest last night. He leaped over freaking Shaq O'Neal's head. 7'1". He cleared him. Shaq was standing straight up. Boo. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, let's get into the Super Bowl. PB, your party shots of the Super Bowl.
Well, I guess first and foremost is it's hard to bet against Mahomes, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he comes to play. I don't want to. It reminds me of the Patriots when the Patriots had like mediocre years, but they always once they got the playoffs, they were deadly. And until the Chiefs prove me wrong, I'm going to continue that into next year. I don't care. They led the league in drop passes and all this other stuff. When the chips are on the table, they come through. And I don't see that not happening in future years to come.
I told you 2 years ago, I was not the Mahomes fan, but when he didn't have like that receiver, which is who, right? He's down there in Miami now, Tyreek.
Yep.
And he started throwing the ball all over the field, even though guys are dropping it, but at least he was trusting other guys to try to make a catch. I said, whoa, he's taking a step, and he has taken a step. And by the way, he ran for what, 66 yards in that game?
He was the leading rusher.
Including the biggest run of the game on 4th and 1 in overtime. If San Fran stops that, they win the Super Bowl, right? They're up 3-0, up by 3.
Yep. They had to at least kick a field goal to extend the game. And right, you're right, absolutely right.
It was on their side of the field too when he went for it, right? So the game was it. They only had one choice: go for it or nothing, right?
Yeah.
So huge. The other 2 things in that game that stood out to me was the blocked extra point, right? Because that San Fran extra point that got blocked, that's now a 4-point game if they make that. And of course, the muff punt, which hits the heel of one of the blockers, and then the kid tries to return it on it's jumbled all around. Those 2 plays decide the game, right? At the end of the day, probably.
Well, and how about CMC fumbling? That's a rare thing because that turnover early in the game, that could have shifted momentum too, right?
Big time, big time. All right, so the biggest elephant right now, in my opinion, is everybody calls Kyle Shanahan the genius of all geniuses. 28-3 as the offensive coordinator, Falcons against the Patriots, could not score in the second half. They lose that game in overtime. But by the way, the only other overtime game, so he's responsible for 2 overtime games that he blew. 10 points up 5 years ago against the Chiefs. 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo overthrows the wide receiver. And now he's 10 points plus up again in this Super Bowl. Where does Shanahan's mistakes rank all time in your mind?
It's not as high as some people probably have him. That's
okay,
for sure.
You're nicer than I am because I at some point in time, you got to give up with the guy. He should be an offensive coordinator, not a head coach. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. All right, let's talk about the other side of the room, Andy Reid. All right, you and I have both said that Bill's going to be the all-time head coach winner at some point in time, which now may never happen for him. But Andy Reid, PB, he stands at 284. I always thought Andy was really older than he is. He's still only 65, going to be 66 this season. But if he coaches 6 more years, averages 11 wins, if Bill never coaches again, Andy's he's it. He stands alone with the mountain. He's the top of the mountain. Do you think he does that? Do you think do you stay that long, and do you think he pulls it off?
Yeah, I think he can. I think he's primed for. Would you say
I
he
mean,
was
Pat's only
64?
28, so that's 6 more years. He's only 34, right?
Yeah, they should win at least another 2 or 3, I would think, in that span.
But winning 11 games every year is probably really. And by the way, the NFL, I predict it right now, by 2027, they will be an 18-game season. They have to. You can't have an odd game season. The only sport that has an odd game season, right?
Right.
So he's going to pick up one more game at some point in time. 11 wins, and if he wins 13 one year, then there you go. That makes it easier, right?
Very doable. Very doable.
So does he go down? Does Andy surpass Bill potentially is to go?
There's potential there for sure. If what we think will happen unfolds over the next 5 to 7 years, then probably he's right up there.
By the way, little DYK, did you know he is one of the only coaches to be the all-time leaders of 2 teams in wins, Philly and now KC.
Wow.
And by the way, those aren't like lackluster franchises. It's not like they're like startups. I mean, KC's from the original AFL, and Philly's been around since like I don't know what, the 40s, right?
Right. Yeah, and the other thing about that is when he took those teams over, they weren't that good. And he brought them to excellence. So you got to look at that. I mean, Belichick did the same thing too. When he took over the Patriots, they weren't good. But that goes into the equation as well. It's not like a who's the guy? Was it Switzer that took over a Dallas team that was already friggin' they're already stacked, right? So that's not the same.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, by the way, we mentioned Bill. Vrabel, Pete Carroll, and Bill Belichick will not be in the NFL this year. Are you shocked by this?
Yeah, I thought one of them would land a job somewhere. So I am surprised by it.
Do you think one of them takes a job as a coordinator and steps down a little bit, takes a coordinator role at one point in time? There was a lot of talk that Vrabel was going to be the DC after he didn't get the HC at the Patriots. There was a lot of talk he'd be the DC, and Mayo did not go that route. He took someone that was one of his guys under him. So, and then I heard a wild story last week. The reason why Vrabel doesn't get a coaching job is because the front office is intimidated by him because he's such a big freaking monster. He's 6'5", 250 when he walks in a room, and he's scary, which is stupid in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's a theory out there that he intimidates the ownership. So I am shocked by Vrabel. I am very shocked. And by the way, what I said maybe 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, the ideal landing spot with him would have been where? Boston College.
All right.
And look who ended up there, Bill O'Brien, which, by the way, is a BC season ticket holder for 26 years. I'm excited that Bill O'Brien's going to be the head coach of BC. That guy, he's a Boston guy. He went to Phillips Academy out in Andover, and his wife's a BC grad. He's 54 years old. He could retire there, right?
Very well could.
He could, yeah. So I'm excited about that. All right, I got a question for you. Let's go to Patrick Mahommes and his legacy. 3 Super Bowls now. He's won. He's lost what, 1 or 2? One Ray lost, right? Tampa Bay.
Yep.
So he's been in 4. He's 28. He'll be 29, I believe, sometime this year. Does he pass Brady, in your opinion, at some point in time?
He's on pace to. I mean, the big thing for him is going to be how long can his career, can he sustain this level of play? We know
Brady won 3 by the time he was 28, if I'm not mistaken, by the math.
Yeah, he won 3 in his first 4 or 5 years. Yeah,
correct.
But the question is, I think he had 2 MVPs, and Mahomes has 3, right? And all 3 of his wins, he got the MVP.
Correct.
I think it's about sustainability. I think everyone made
fun.
By
the way, Brady didn't have a Super Bowl MVP. I think he didn't have it in the second one. That was Deion Branch, I believe, or the third one. So I think he only maybe had 1 in the first 3.
Maybe even, yeah. I think a lot of it's going to go with sustainability. I mean, we know, as much as we used to make fun of Brady with his avocado ice cream and everything else, but the guy had a regimen that kept him in football shape for as long as he did. Playing until 45, and by the way, winning,
3 of his 7 Super Bowls, or even 4 of his 7 Super Bowls after the age of 35 or 36, 37, whatever it was.
Yep.
That's the question. Can Mahomes get there before he turns 37 or 38? Because I don't know if Mahomes can play till he's 45. So he has less time.
He's not
to
the
do
most
it.
physical guy. He's not the most physical guy. And
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. So speaking of that, if Mahomes goes into the first game this year, blows out his knee and never plays again, is he a Hall of Famer even? First ballot?
I would say, well, definitely a Hall of Famer. First ballot might be debatable, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, people have had really good careers that have been short and been the best, like a la Barry Sanders. We'll just use him as an example. And you're the
Although
best.
he chose his ending, right? So Barry
Yeah.
chose his. Pat's not going to choose his. It's going to be because of injury, I think.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't think that's foreseeable right now. If he had a major injury, it would be for a year, and he would come back the following year, kind of like Brady did in 2000,
Six.
whatever it was, 8, 6, yeah.
Well, Pat is not as physically, he's not 6'4", 220 like Brady. So, and he likes to run, which is a scary thought at some point in time. And he's quick enough. He's a much better scrambler than people give him credit for. Don't you agree?
100%.
I mean, you said he was the leading rusher in the game, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, all right. The last thing I want to ask you about Kyle Shanahan. 28-3. I know he's only the offensive coordinator. He wasn't making the decisions, but he got nothing out of his offense in the second half because it was 28-3 at the halftime. He was up by 10 in that game in a Super Bowl in 2019, I believe it was the 18th season. And then once again, he's up by 10. What happens in his legacy? Well, first of all, do you think he ever wins the Super Bowl? Because right now, I believe they're the odds-on favorite. We're going to talk about this right in a minute. I think they're the odds-on favorite for next year, right?
Yeah, they are ahead of Kansas City, believe it or not. Yeah. I don't know. I think to your point, sometimes it's almost better to see a coach that can do what, maybe less with less talent, and they seem like a better coach, someone who can get to the Final Four, or get into that championship game in the conference, or make a Super Bowl like Dan Campbell did. And it's like that says a lot more to me, the way he's built that team up. Now, granted, they're getting pretty stacked over the years. They're obviously a very talented team, but we still look at the San Francisco 49ers as the most talented team in the NFL.
Roster-wise, I agree. Roster-wise, from one to
right. And if you
1 to 42, right?
And if you can't win with them, and you don't get to if you don't make it to the Super Bowl next year, or at least the NFC Championship game, how much more are you going to give this guy a chance where he can't get over the hump?
I agree. Do you think the pressure of his dad's 2 Super Bowl wins hangs over his head a little bit?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I'm going to say no on that one.
Because he was on his dad's staff, I believe, for the second one at least. So, all right. So you think, all right, next year, let's wrap it up with this. San Fran right now is the betting favorite. KC's second, Baltimore's third, Detroit's fourth, I think, followed by probably Buffalo and Dallas and one other, which I
Cincinnati.
And I guess now, probably, I haven't seen the latest, but now that Jim Harbaugh is officially in charge of the country, they've got to be in the top 10, probably, betting odds. Who do you like?
Yeah, and again, I go back to that, historical element of the loser of the Super Bowl has only made the Super Bowl again in the following year 7 times in NFL history.
7 times.
And 3 of those 7 are the Bills during their 4-year stretch when they lost 4 straight. So outside of that, it's only been 4 times that it's happened. The last team to do it was actually the 2018 Patriots. They went in 2017 and 28 after losing, and then went again in 2018.
Yeah.
But it's a rare occurrence.
It's a very rare, right?
And with that in mind, I wouldn't be betting San Francisco to win the Super Bowl next year. I just feel that way.
What about the team you love to hate, the Eagles? They have a stacked roster.
They do, but I'm still concerned about the coaching staff. They didn't make any moves with the coaching staff.
Well, they fired all the defensive coaches.
Yeah. I would rather put money on, the Lions in that conference. I'd be interested to see where Kirk Cousins ends up. That might be a sleeper little type of pick to do. You know, I like.
Let me ask
I
you a
know
question. So speaking of that, you picked Atlanta to win the NFC West this past season. If Cousins ends up in Atlanta, what do you think happens?
Yeah, in the South, yeah, the NFC South.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's my point. Or if they draft Michael Penix, or they draft Bo Nix or something. I think they have weapons in place. Their defense is definitely top half of the league.
So
And
if you're Atlanta, are you going to win more with Bo Penix or with Kirk Cousins? I mean, Bo Nix or Michael Penix. I'm sorry, or Kirk Cousins or Kirk Cousins.
probably next year, probably be Kirk Cousins.
Okay, I'm with you. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, longer term, and maybe you can have someone, he can be a tutor for someone like a Bo Nix, let's say, for a year or two. But I do like Atlanta. I mean, if they're sitting at 25 or 30-1, I'd throw a little bit on that. I'd rather bet the long shots that can get in there, knowing that San Francisco historically is not going to get back there. So I do like. How about the Packers? They show little signs of,
They did.
know?
Hey, by the way, Tampa Bay's not going to go away.
And they're not going away either. So,
Baker's going to get a long-term contract.
Yep.
Sure. And that team has talent on the roster, right? So
Yeah. But I'm not on board with the Eagles. I'm not on board. The Cowboys have just proved me wrong year over year over year. So I'm not going to take the Cowboys. I'm not going to take the Eagles. I will be looking heavily at the Lions. I will be looking heavily at the Falcons and the Rams next year. That's another team that might find their way back there. So to me right now, I'd rather put money on those three and see where it takes me with longer shots.
all right, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. You had $100 to blow. What are the two teams you would see in the Super Bowl right now?
And look, $100 to get a good return, or just like guarantee type bets?
Just to get a good return. $100. What you're gonna bet $100 today? You go to Vegas tomorrow. You go. I'm gonna put $100 on this team to win the AFC and this team to win the NFC. What do you got?
If I had to do a Super Bowl matchup, that would probably give me the biggest odds. I could probably get 60, probably over 100-1, maybe 80, 100-1 would be the Chargers and the Falcons in the Super Bowl. Because I'll get a good return on my money. I can win 10.
Yeah. I'm not going for a return. I'm going for the best. I'm going to go Cincinnati. Yes, I did take them last year, but Burrow got hurt. I'm going Cincinnati, and I'm going to go Dallas Cowboys. Of course I am.
That's what you did last year.
I know.
Now, if I want to bet and have fun and try to get return on my money, I said Falcons and Chargers. If I'm going to pick who I think is going to be there, I would go Lions, Bengals.
I'll go Lions for my wild card long shot. I'll go Lions and I'll go Chargers.
Lions and who?
Chargers.
Yeah.
Chargers. Yeah.
I think Harbaugh's going to make a difference quickly.
I think so too. By the way, another team that's going to surprise people if they can get a quarterback is going to be the Raiders. So we'll see. By the way, last thing, Buffalo.
I know we're starting to not even talk about them anymore. I mean, despite Josh Allen's ridiculous talent, I don't know if they have the right pieces to do this thing. I mean, the AFC is stacked. You got to deal. First of all, you got to deal with the Jets and Dolphins in your own division, right?
Yeah.
Then you got to deal with the Bengals. You got to deal with the Ravens. You got to deal with an up-and-coming Houston team. You got to deal with the Jaguars. You got to deal with the Chiefs. You got to deal with the Chargers. There's too many teams. Buffalo might not make the playoffs next year.
So are you calling it right now the Buffalo window for a championship is closed?
I don't know.
Oh, come on. Have some nuts.
All right.
Oh, it's over for Buffalo. I love it. PB going out there. He's going out bold and strong. I love it. To wrap up the show this week. Nice call, my man. All right.
All right.
We're going to start talking a little hoops. We're going to start talking a little hockey coming up.
And our baseball preview is not far away either.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man.
All
Have
right.
a good one. Talk to you later.
Yeah. All right.